everyone. Welcome to BMC Exchange 2022. I'm so excited you decided to join us today to talk about how CulturePop can revolutionize your DEI journey at your organizations as you hear about our journey here at BMC. I'm so thrilled to share the stage today with a couple of my favorite people in the world, literally. First off, I want to talk about Tracy Scholes. She is a Senior Director of Finance. She is our One Earth Environmental Advocates Employee Resource Group Captain, and she is an avid CulturePop user. I want to talk about retired Army Captain Drew Berkowitz, who is a music enthusiast. He is an entrepreneur. He is the co-founder of CulturePop, and he is going to share so much really cool content with you today. And then last but not least, retired Colonel Greg Gadson, advocate, artist, photographer, actor, chief strategy officer at CulturePop, and fantastic speaker who is going to round out the session today. And I am Wendy Rentschler, and I lead corporate social responsibility here at BMC. And so what I want to ask of you as the audience first is you're going to notice a QR code down at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and click that whenever you get a chance, and you can download the CulturePop app while you're with us. This is free to you. BMC and CulturePop are covering your subscription until the end of 2022. So that way you can build your awareness 4 minutes at a time while we're here on this journey together. So let me tell you a little bit about the journey before we jump into the conversation. I started here at BMC in 2020, November of 2020, and one of the tasks that was given to me by our executive team was to find ways to elevate our culture through the One BMC journey and bring us together to prioritize inclusion to drive innovation. And one of the big ways that I thought about that, as I was thinking also too of our ADE messaging, which I'm sure you've heard all about during Exchange 2022, was how could we make the autonomous digital enterprise include everyone? And that is when I stumbled across CulturePop. In my previous experiences, I have worked in human capital management, and HR tech is one of the loves of my life. And as I looked for solutions, one of the things that really stood out to me about CulturePop is it met users where they were on their mobile phones. And that not only that, it also had international content. So much content these days was really centric to one country and didn't really include everyone's lived experience, countries, and values. And so when I finally got a chance to meet the CulturePop team and work with them and join forces, figuratively as well as literally, it was such a fantastic opportunity to really elevate our ADE messaging as BMC. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Drew, who's going to tell you just a little bit about CulturePop. And then we're going to talk about Drew and Greg's incredible friendship, how CulturePop came to be. And then Tracy and I will pepper a conversation along the way of what our favorite features are and how it's really helping all of us live collectively to prioritize that inclusion, driving innovation, and making sure the autonomous digital enterprise includes everyone. So Drew, I'm going to hand it over to you. Tell us a little bit about CulturePop.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you, Wendy. We looked at this problem a few years ago and saw that, diversity and inclusion had sometimes a moniker of compulsory training. And Greg and I, who I've known since the mid-1980s through the military, we learned how to develop inclusion instincts. First, certainly at the point of compulsory training. We were thrown into the Army together. Greg was a soccer player. Greg was a football player. I was a soccer player. But one thing we both shared was this cadence to learn about one another. And that cadence through learning about one another was, frankly, a necessity. You could not get through West Point without knowing your peers, learning from your peers. But more importantly, Wendy, by learning through one another at high frequency, you got to really find lifelong friends. And we don't think we're any different than the private sector employees. And so what we did was created a software system that would mimic the cadence of curiosity. And as you mentioned, curiosity usually has about a 3 to 4 minute time span where something catches your attention and you find it interesting. We took the 32 aspects of the diversity wheel, and those aspects range from race and gender, of course, but they also render fascinating information about heritage, language, orientations, the whole span of diversity. So think of CulturePop as something that really gives people a new cadence to move an academic subject, maybe diversity, equity, and inclusion, to a more habit-forming curiosity. And that's how the system really functions, is to reach you, as you said, on the fly. We use the term DEI on the fly because it really is just fascinating material and very learnable moments throughout our lives that we would, I think, miss the bigger picture of inclusivity if we didn't have curiosity at the forefront.
Wonderful. And then can you tell me a little bit about how you and Greg met in your incredible friendship journey?
Yeah. So mid 1980s, Greg and I had both applied to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, and we were the cohort of about 250 imperfects, meaning we were not a perfect application to West Point. And you went to the West Point Prep School in Fort Monmouth, which was, I called it the island of misfit toys, because we were all there for some type of repairable thing that we had to do. It might have been a physical thing we had to overcome, a mental, an emotional, an age thing, the whole range of things. So Greg and I met each other as imperfect candidates to West Point back in 1984. That's the two of us there in around 86 when we were our second year at West Point. And that picture down below is just a couple of years ago when we were full stream on CulturePop. And he's a brother from a different mother. And he is someone who I always say is exactly not like myself. And that really is the whole operating system of CulturePop. How do you find exactness where it exists, but then how do you find this beautiful discovery where it doesn't exist? And Greg's helped me find that through my life, and we try and represent that as much as we can through software now.
That's beautiful. Greg, please include your story in this journey.
Right. Thank you, Wendy. And what I would like to add really is maybe a little bit of a preface about what was some of the inspiration behind this. Most of us can recall the summer of George Floyd, and I personally remember just sort of thinking, why are we at this juncture and struggling with these kinds of issues in our society? These are the things that my parents had to deal with, and here they are again. And Drew called me, and I was thinking, what can I do? And I was not optimistic about anything that I could personally do until Drew called, and we began to build a coalition of our classmates that literally replicates the spectrum of diversity and all of our insights and lessons over the past 30 plus years. And that's really, tremendous leadership and vision by Drew, and brought together. We all have our strengths and perspectives, and we're willing to kind of roll up our sleeves and do what it takes. And then, for you all to be a premier software company and have the kind of enthusiasm that you have about it really infuses our determination, because we understand that this is a tough problem, and this is what I would say, Wendy, and I'll stop, is this. Laws cannot legislate a man's heart, cannot change a man's heart, and at the heart of this, at the heart of CulturePop, is that the change comes from inside. We've got to take a look and inventory ourselves from the inside and confront our biases, which we all have. The question is, do we act on them? Do we act on them fairly? And so when we start to take inventory of them, I think most people, the vast majority of people are going to make change, and that's what our hope is.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I agree with you. I think we all went through this global catharsis in 2020 as the world, through COVID, but also to social, unrest all over the world in the United States with George Floyd and other parts of the world with other things that were going on. And they continue today, like we thought that 2021 was going to change, 2022, things were going to turn around. They just continue. So it even speaks more journey and volumes to like how tools like this can help organizations really kind of create opportunities to have dialogue and to help their people to, I guess, kind of have these changes within themselves that lead into and bleed into the work atmosphere and create these spaces of psychological safety. Tracy, do you mind if I pop it over to you? Can you tell me a little bit about like your journey at BMC and then our DEI programming standing up, and then how CulturePop possibly like helped accelerate that for you?
Sure, be glad to. So I am a longer-term BMC employee. I've been at BMC for 25 years, and as part of that, and when you stay a place that long, it's obviously because you have a connection to the people at the company. I did have a lot of good close colleagues, and one of those was promoted to the executive leadership team to take over the People and Spaces organization, and as part of one of his first initiatives was to focus on diversity at the company. And he set up an inclusion roundtable. And I was asked if I would participate in that, of which I readily said yes. His second action was to bring in you, Wendy, to focus on DEI. And I believe it was your first initiative to roll out CulturePop, which really fit along the lines of our ADE message in streamlining the way that we operate and meeting all of our employees where they are. So if you want to then broaden that to how I use it, I will tell you, I'm known to at least to our IT colleagues as a good candidate to be an early adopter for any technology that we roll out. I have another reason I've been at BMC a long time. I love technology, so I readily dove into the CulturePop app, and became a part of my morning routine. So CulturePop, I love the way that CulturePop reminds me to go to the app every morning. So I have notifications turned on, and it says, hey, come over to the app and learn something cool and new today. And then, as you've mentioned, the 4-minute, kind of bite-size chunk that then I can take with me for my day and open and broaden my perspectives. It makes it so doable every day to learn something new. So that's how I've adopted that, and it's just become part of my morning routine.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you so much, Tracy. And what's your favorite feature?
Outside of the notification, I will tell you the favorite feature that I have is that every time I open it up, if I have a notification that opens me up to a specific topic, if I just randomly open up the app, it takes me to a different place every time. So it's going to drop me into one of about like 9 pillars or 14, I think it's 14 pillars of learning, where I'm not always, it doesn't get as stale. I'm not always learning from the same stack. I may be learning from, a religious, I might be learning from leadership, I might be learning from gender, and it gives me just a broader set of options in which to learn from.
Wonderful. Greg, what's your favorite feature on the app?
I would say it's in line with what Tracy talks about is really the I guess challenge us to say it has all bases covered. I mean, it's interesting when you look at a video, you see something, and you end up following this thread, and you end up it takes you where you start is not necessarily where you end. At least that's been my experience and habit is I might start out here in disabilities and I don't know where I end up, but it doesn't continue along one line of operation.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, I do go down a rabbit hole as well. I just like article, video, and there's so many different ways to engage with it as well on all different topics, to your point. Drew, what about you?
I'm a fan of the pop polls and surveys, Wendy, that kind of give you a question that you may thought you held quite uniquely, and then you see how others respond to it as a percentage, right? So it gives you a sense of like maybe a topic, such as a statement like, is inclusivity as important as curiosity, right? Or is inclusivity as important as leadership? And then you just see how people react to that one statement. Even a statement like, do you feel you belong at your organization? That's one of my favorites, because sometimes people don't stay at an organization not for a function of inclusivity, but because they don't feel they have a career path, or they don't feel they have a mentor, or they don't feel that they connect with people socially. So what the app does is it gives people these polls and surveys in complete anonymity. So the app will never grab a phone number nor an email address, but it will personalize Tracy's learning and Greg's learning and my learning very differently by the behaviors and the responses you give in the app. And so to me, just the interaction points are as interesting as the points of learnable moments.
I was going to ask each of you too, what is something really interesting that you've learned from CulturePop that you didn't know about? Tracy, any really random thing that you didn't know or broaden your spheres of awareness from using the app?
Well, and I think Drew touched on it at the beginning, so that I would have likely, if you'd asked me about diversity, I probably would have listed what we would now classify as the internal diversity. So the things that you're born with, and not even move to the other types of diversities that get you to the 32. So if that's a external, which might be education, it might be family, it might be location, it might be job diversity, which might be management, non-management, full-time, contractor, and then it might be then other, it may be taken a little bit more of a forefront recently, which might be political, or like socioeconomic kind of perspectives of, and so all of that together makes it, and I noticed the Rubik's Cube on the chart makes it exactly that. It's complex, and so in order to, it really outlines that there are so many differences, that how every person is unique, that why you have to engage, thoughtfully and aware, and use things like active listening in order to be effective and to be a good leader.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you bring up these other factors that I don't think are oftentimes as broad of a knowledge, but so important to someone's lived experience and journey in terms of privilege and access and ability to influence as well as help. So that is very insightful and interesting. Drew.
I like the international dimension of it, Wendy, for two reasons. One is, the U.S. is a tapestry of a lot of nationalities. We were a country of immigrants in our nascent state. And then secondly, when you overlay all the international dimensions with the fact that, the Spanish language has about 8% of integration and infusion of Arabic language, that there are words in Spanish because the Moors occupied Spain for 800 years. So on the surface, you would think, oh, Spanish is Spanish. But if you actually learn through these overlays of the human condition, there's a lot of Arabic influence even in the country of Spain. And then that language of Arabic found its way permanently in Spanish, and then the language moved itself to South America. So to me, it's just if you're a student of humanity, then you're a fan of CulturePop, because it's meant to take your mind to places and think about diversity, equity, inclusion in just a much more entertainment-based, interest level fashion, as opposed to kind of a static one class a year dimension. So we make it dynamic, interactive, fun, hopefully for folks like Tracy to attest to, and and then repeatable. And it's that sustainable curiosity that, to me, is where the behaviors come to life.
Well, I think for what you're saying around, like the gamification of it and then all of the content, it is fun at times, but certainly, like as a DEI leader, you realize you don't know what you don't know. I mean, it is impossible to know everything about everyone and every lived experience, right? And I think that that's really cool, the feature of it, just how many levels it goes down. And also, to your example, is perfect of how we are all so interconnected together. And I think that we lose sight of that often. Greg.
Well, Wendy, I think we kind of touched a little bit on it in our pre-call, but just maybe as a lover of history, we are so intertangled and intermeshed, and when you become more informed, I would believe that we would become more humble and respectful, that we are so very close, and I believe that again, that introspective look and that understanding of our connections and where things come from, adds to our appreciation of all humans.
Yes, I 100% agree. And again, that's why I absolutely love this tool. And I'm so happy that we got to feature it at Exchange 2022. And whether or not you in the audience decide to move forward with CulturePop, I do hope you take advantage of the QR code that's at the bottom of the screen and check it out, explore it. This is completely free to you from CulturePop and BMC until December 31st, 2022. And maybe you'll get a chance to broaden your spheres of awareness, think of really cool ways to invent products, iterate on an idea you have. We know that when we have different voices in the room, when we're creating our products in the tech world and then within our BMC ecosystem, that we can create the most accessible and inclusive technologies to really advance and support the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals towards a path of better humanity. So I want to give each of you the opportunity to share some final words, and then we'll close the session out. 30 minutes goes by so fast. Drew, what words do you have for us?
Inclusion is an infusion, and it always will be. And I think if you open your mind to new stories and new backgrounds, you'll enrich your life forever. So thanks for having us today, Wendy.
Wonderful. Yes. Tracy.
The more you know, the broader your world, the less the narrower. So reach out and make your world broad.
Greg.
In our preamble, we are charged with, in order to form a more perfect union. And that humble statement says that we have work to do. We can be better. And this tool gives us another chance to live up to our best selves.
And my advice would be, please be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Here at BMC, we truly believe that the autonomous digital enterprise includes everyone. I want you to take a moment to check out the resources page. Please make sure you visit the other sessions. We will have a session coming up around ESG considerations in your stack where you can really amplify even more being thoughtful and mindful around environmental, societal, and governance within your tech stack to be a more responsible technology company or entity or business unit within your own organization. And then please go to our resource center and finally check out BMC Cares in the virtual booth area. We have something really cool with the Zoological Society of London where you can help wildlife conservationists tag animals for research and help them advance better efforts towards wildlife conservation, again, supporting the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So thank you all so much for your time. Please go check out CulturePop and live curiously. Thank you.